Well, Sanjay, thank you so much for helping with my project. I was wondering if maybe you could introduce yourself.
Sure, absolutely. I am in the IT for more than 28 years. I have worked through IBM, HP, Dell, EMC, Amazon Web Services, and now I am working for Oracle. From 2008, I am working with cloud and AI, ML, artificial intelligence, and machine learning. So I am a product manager. I have a team of product managers, and we are working with engineering to have AI, ML, workloads on Oracle Cloud.
That is really awesome. I've done a little bit of development myself, and worked at Compaq, and now I work at Anaplan. And uh, it still amazes me kind of like what the potential is for computing, but then still how we seem so far away from that. I mean, there's so much manual work that's still involved in terms of just simple stuff like ETL and putting stuff in the database and then showing the database on like the web and doing some type of applications. It seems like we should be like orders of magnitude further along than we are from industry.
Absolutely, yes. So one of the things that I work on is mostly automation. You know, so how we can automate some of the things that you said, that from extracting the data, how to process it or pre-process it, move from the database to the application, process it further, and then how to visualize it. Yes, so our team work on that end-to-end automation of the pipeline. But you are right, we are so farther away from the, I think, end goal. And I think it is not an end goal, it will also evolve. So as we approach the end goal, we see that it is evolving to something else, right?
Oh,
Yep.
exactly. I mean, like for example, my oldest son, he's going to Carnegie Mellon University,
Mhm.
and he's doing some studies on depression in relation to sleep and exercise and that type of thing. So he has like a population of a few dozen people wearing, the Fitbit, and then downloads the activity data, but just watching kind of taking this data, processing it, looking for features, doing analysis on it, and what have you. The process he has to go through, the tools may have changed names somewhat, but the actual process itself looks like something that you would do back in, like the 70s or 60s with like mainframes, as opposed to it being able to just put in some type of environment and kind of have it interpret it.
Yes. Yeah. So as you said, so that means in that use case they have an IoT, right? The
Mhm.
bits are working as an IoT sensors, and then they have a IoT cloud, and then probably where the processing is being held. So it is exactly the same thing that we used to do. Back in the days, you get the data, put it somewhere, process it, analyze it, and then show the analysis. So it is the same pipeline, but we are just using different names. And I think we are also trying to automate it. Like in Oracle, we have something called autonomous database. So we are trying to make it like that. You put the data, analyze it, and visualize it. So it is just like the mainframe, that one system where you input and the output is your analysis and visualization. So yeah, so I think we all are working on the same, type of things.
Oh, exactly. And it's amazing how like CSV files are really still the standard way to send data between systems.
Yep. Yes. Yep. 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 And I think now we are using more and more CSV files. So,
Exactly.
so instead of the trend going down, it is actually more and more CSV files. And then you use Python to do some pre-processing and all these things. But yeah, yes.
It seems like I mean CSVs are great because they're simple. They're also very compact, unlike XML where you have all this repetitive metadata taking up so much space. It seems to me that there should be something like in between the two, like where you have like some XML files that describe the structure of the CSV files, and then the CSV files, and you zip it all together, and it's like one standard file format that you could use to.
Yep. Yeah. And for that, we have used YAML with JSON, to sometimes. We have used also SQL and NoSQL databases, and actually you save the metadata somewhere else and you work on the metadata and then you use the metadata to grab the tables and all. But yeah, I think it is an ever evolving process. But I can tell you one thing, that everything is now AI, right? Anything we hear is AI, artificial intelligence.
Right,
So
but
yeah,
I guess a
really using AI. You know.
right. I mean, it's definitely a buzzword, and everybody is, all customers are like asking about it. All software vendors have to have some offering in that space, otherwise, what are you doing? But one kind of challenge with AI and machine learning is it's great for pattern matching, kind of taking past trends and data and projecting it forward. Um, but like this whole COVID-19 thing, yeah, I mean, what training set of data could possibly give modern companies some type of way to respond to it going forward?
Uh, I think it is what means. I feel it is an classic example of what Nicholas Taleb has said, black swan event. It is a classic case of black swan event, and you are absolutely right that if we have to have a system which can predict such type of outcome, that system has to be our earth, you know means it has to know what each individual is doing. It has to know what every nation state is working on. It has to know about the weather, the climate, right?
Right?
So I think if earth is that system, then probably we can able to predict something like that. But then also, if it is extraterrestrial, it will not able to do that. Then we have to build a system like the solar system, right?
Hmm.
And then if it is extra solar, then it is a galactic system. So probably if we can tap into what the universe is computing, we may be able to, see the future or what are the futures, right?
Exactly. I think Niels Bohr, the Nobel-winning physicist, said that prediction is difficult, especially about the future.
Right.
Um, and there's also another saying, the easiest way to predict the future is to create it, which is kind of the scary side of AI. Is maybe AI is like, I can't really predict it, but I can control it.
Yeah, I can control it. I can, yeah. Yeah, I will work as per my prime directive, and if my prime directive is to use resources to make pens, I will use all the resources to make pens, irrespective of what happens to humanity or humans. I will just produce pens. Yeah, you are right. It can be, means. So one of the things we do is we work on AI safety and AI ethics. And the issue is that AI, or what I call machine learning algorithm going wild, is not that algorithm has to be self-conscious and malicious. You know, it can just follow some simple rules, and it will see us as the obstacles. So so it will do something to us to just gain us simple outcome. It is interesting.
Yeah, and that's like the big, when the computers stop crashing and actually work correctly. Every time the computer crashes, you're like, oh, well, I think we're safe from AI for a while. But you know, there are some more kind of local issues with machine learning and AI that affect us today and are something that we need to worry about around machine learning and AI is being used to do like credit ratings and approvals for loans and what have you, are reviewing job applicants for a job. And inherently, the AI machine learning is basically taking, applying learned data to all these future situations. And it's unable to be really inspected on what kind of um, criteria it's making those decisions on. And the companies that are using them can basically say, there is no bias or anything. We simply have this algorithm that is looking at past and applying it to the future. But implicit in all that training data could be a whole bunch of biases that would actually be illegal and unethical and kind of contrary to the goals of society.
Yeah, I think one of the big thing that we are facing with AI or ML algorithms is the explainability. Explainability of the algorithm and the data it is handling. So like we are using now more and more black box like situation where we are using RNN, a recurrent neural network, or CNN, means any deep learning, and we don't know really exactly what is going in the black box. And when we are getting data, we are also not making sure that we are getting unbiased, data, because we are getting it from some third party, from some other places, other sources, and we don't always know what we are getting, and we are putting it in the black box, and we are expecting an outcome which is favorable to us, right? So
Right.
yeah, so explainability, AI explainability is a big thing, and as you said, that explainability should be extended to the data set we are working with. So not only our algorithm has to be bias less, the data also has to be bias proof, right? Yeah, it is absolutely an interesting, interesting field.
But what are some of your hobbies?
So one of the hobbies is that I have a FA, amateur UAV license. So I have probably 8, 9 different drones which I fly here. So that is one of the hobbies. And then another one of the hobbies, I am here in Texas for a long time. So it is shooting, shooting in the ranges. So I have some handguns and some shotguns. So it is also another hobby. And then, of course, the reading, reading, it is a hobby from childhood, So I am reading, and now you can read printed books, you can read on your iPad, Kindle, you can read anywhere, everywhere, right? And when you are not feeling like reading, then you can listen to the audiobooks. So, and then if you don't have anything to do, then you can watch Netflix and Amazon Prime, Amazon Video. So I think we are always getting information overload, and I think my hobby is information.
It's interesting. I've been trying to think about how people come up with like real earth-changing ideas and move society along.
Right,
And I think one source of that has been like boredom. You know, people who are bored, often think of new ideas and new ways of doing things that nobody else thought of. But we're living in a society where nobody's ever bored.
right, which is true. But yeah, and I think another source of idea maybe is that when you are reading a wide range of literature, sometimes you see that how some things which you did not even think that they can connect, and they are actually connected. And what I am finding interesting is that whatever we think is as a new idea, it has already been thought by somebody else somewhere in the earth, not only now, but in the past also.
Yeah. Um, do you read any science fiction?
Hey,
Hello. Looks like your connection got disconnected.
yeah, I think that I don't know, must be my internet or something. It got
I,
lost.
so you were
Yeah,
talking about
science fiction.
connecting
Yeah,
things between various fields, and reading has been a good source. And the fact that even every idea that a lot of people think of may not be new. There may be other people in the world doing it, or even in the past. And I was going to ask you if you read
science
any
fiction,
science
right?
fiction. Yeah.
Yes, and I talk to this for probably uh, 40 seconds
Oh.
before understanding that I am not. Yeah, so it is an very interesting story. So I went to school, into my elementary school in India, right? Means entire my childhood in India. And I went to an English medium school. And when I was in grade 3, on the third grade, we had a period where we have to go and read something in our libraries. And most of the boys as such, they are going and reading Hardy Boys, and the girls are reading Nancy Drew and all these things, and all Secret Seven and all this stuff. And one of the day I found a very thin book, and it is saying I Robot by Isaac Asimov, not even Isaac Asimov. So that term robot, got me interested. I read that book, and after that, there is no stopping. I used to find out every science fiction that I can get in our school libraries, and they were mostly British science fictions. So Isaac Asimov was one of the exception. Most of them were Arthur C. Clarke, and then Huxley, Aldous Huxley, and then Wells, and then actually and then I was, I think, on the 8th grade or something. I read one book. It is by, I think it is called The Dream. And it was written by Wannes Kepler, you know. So it was one of the earliest science fiction. I think it was published in 1634, 1635, 1636, you know, and probably Kepler has written it in 1609 or so. I don't remember the exact date, but it is attributed to him, and it is about, um, as far as I know, that it is about something. Somebody went up into the moon, you know. So it was the first science fiction that I read about moon, and then of course Trulev Fan's, you know, science fiction about moon, and then Heinlein's, you know, moon is a harsh mistress and all these things. But I'm saying yes. So I grew up with science fiction, and then after Asimov, I went to more Heinlein and other, you know, other Spielberg, other American science fictions and all these things. So from childhood, I want to be here because I wanted to be a backyard scientist, you know, that where you can do anything in your garage and in your backyard, you know. And of course, for a long time, astronomy and outer space or even inner space, you know, means moon and all was highest in my, you know, in my, means that is what I wanted to be. Of course, when I went to engineering and all, you know, uh, then I got more interested in AI and all these things. But I think that there is a connection, you know. I was talking to some of my friends that how we can put a supply chain manufacturing hub in the moon, you know, and I was saying that hey, we can actually uh, genetically reprogram some of the insects, you know, with now CRISPR and all these things, you know, CRISPR Cas9, you can reprogram some of these insects, and which can work in the climate like in Moon and Mars, where there is no oxygen, but they can work, you know, with other stuff. And then I realized that it has already been explored by, I think, H.G. Wells, you know. I don't remember the name of the book, but I think he was talking about some type of insectoids which are inhabiting the moon, you know. So yeah, so all these things are, you know, so somebody has already thought about it. You have to just go and fine tune that thought and execute it.
Yes, the execution is the key.
Right.
Yeah, I was thinking, you know, you have Elon Musk and Jeff Bezos trying to bring down the cost of launching things,
Right.
but the ultimate lowest cost is not to have to launch anything. Create some type of system on the moon that's able to get your building stock and have some type of generalized manufacturing capability, maybe using additive manufacturing, what have you, where essentially the only thing you're transferring to the moon is the information, which is free to transmit.
Yes. Yep.
And then at that point, you talk about opening up space in an unimaginable way. You know, I want this new probe on the moon or on Mars, or you know, there's an asteroid that's coming towards the Earth, and it's in the vicinity of like the asteroid belt. We have a whole bunch of devices throughout the asteroid belt ready to create whatever needs to be created at the time, and is able to kind of
Yeah.
reuse everything. And we just send the data, and boom, we have our probe, and we're good to go.
Yeah, so I have actually written a science fiction which has not been published anywhere, right? Which is about how you are feeding the moon or any other planet with a very small payload of 3D printers and a transmitter and a receiver. So it is a mobile station with 3D printers and a transmitter and a receiver. And as you said, you are sending the information from here, and it has enough raw materials in that planet to start and building from there. So the first thing it is building is that it is building more 3D printers. And then it is building all this other necessary equipment. And then in my science fiction I had is that some act into it and then and put some malicious code. And one fine day, everybody looked up and saw the moon is a huge 3D printer. There is no materials, but it is a huge 3D printer hanging out there, you know. So it is where the AI or whatever you say went, you know, not wrong. It just went too far with its prime directive, you know.
And then it starts using the earth, dismantling the earth for feedstock to
Yeah,
create.
went that far. I just said, oh, just watch and you just see a huge, you know, 3D printer. Yeah, that is the next, you know, I think.
Do you
Next.
have a 3D printer?
Yes, I have.
Which one?
I have one from the Kickstarter, you know. So Kickstarter had a small 3D printer called Toy Box. So it is more for creating toys, you know. I don't have anything here. It is in my lab, but yeah. So it is. I'm just trying to see if I have created something here, which is, you know.
Do you have to do self-leveling?
Yes, and I have to also do self calibrating, you know. So it is a little bit, you know, cumbersome.
I have Ender 3,
Vendor thing. Okay, which is yeah.
and the leveling process is just, it pulls my hair out every single time. You know, it's just like,
Yeah, so I spent quite a few days initially, and then it is just aligned there. And then probably 15, 16 years ago, I was into astronomy, you know, telescope, and I had an old Celestron reflector, you
Mhm.
know, but then again, it dropped off from my hobby. But now I have got a Eviscope. Eviscope is the new French, you know, Unistar, you know. So Eviscope 4.5 reflecting telescope. So I have it now. I haven't opened it yet, you know. So now that will be for few, you know, I think that
uh,
will be my next hobby.
I don't know if you're in a place where you have a good view of sort of like the setting sun area, but you know, looking at Neowise might be, the comet Neowise might be of interest
Correct. Yep.
if you.
Yep. We have a field where we can go and watch actually a few days back. So I have
It's 1 o'clock.
IFTT where actually I can go and see when ISS is up in Dallas. So I actually went and through my binocular, you know, saw ISS, you know. So I have an automated, you know, feed whenever ISS is, you know, up in
Overhead, yeah.
over. So now I will also use Eviscope to see, you know, ISS. Yep.
How much more time do you have? I know I only scheduled this for 30 minutes and I didn't want to.
Nope.
Oh,
I have,
okay,
yeah.
cool. So did you know that NASA is planning to send people to the moon in 2024?
Yes. Yep.
And how did you find out about it?
I am a, you know, I am a NSS member, right? So I am an NSS member, so I get the Ad Astra magazine.
Hmm.
So from there, I saw that news.
Are you a member of the Dallas chapter?
Yes, yeah,
Oh,
yes,
okay. With Ken and um, Aleph and the
yeah.
rest. Okay. That's neat. Um, well, would you believe that most of the people I've talked to aren't aware that we're going to the moon in 2024?
Really?
Yes, I would say out of the 220 interviews I've done, only maybe about 45 or so knew that we were going to the moon.
Not only I know you, I am also sad that I cannot be one of them because I am old.
I, I don't say that. I still have hope.
Yeah, means I also have hope, but between you and me, okay. Yeah, yeah.
But
So,
what
yeah.
I mean, what some people talk about the value of us going is the inspiration factor. And how can it inspire people if people don't know about it? And what would it take for people to know about it? It's kind of
So, like one of the things, so I really did not know about that you are doing that. So afterwards, what I have done is that I don't have a Facebook account, but I have a LinkedIn, Instagram, and Twitter. So I will share, and I will ask others to share. But I think that right now we are always hearing about all kind of things which are not very positive, right? So I think everybody, every one of us who knows about this information, if we make an effort to at least make sure that we are letting another 6% know, not any, another 6% know who were not aware, and also making sure that each one of them should let another 6 unaware person know, and making sure that those 6 also do that. Just by the networking effect, we will have a geometrical progression, that people will know. And I am seeing more moon and Mars like Wild West, that how people can go from a old system into a new system. We have to expand out of this world. Otherwise, we will be not true humanity. We will be always, Americans, this, that, we will be always these nation states, or we will be always these religious or not, means, all these belief systems. Just to be human, we have to go out of the earth, and we have to face, all the problems where, we will be humans.
yeah, definitely. But I think you're seeing another. I think this is another situation where AI and ML is working against society because it not everybody's looking at the same printed newspaper or watching the same broadcast on TV. Everybody is getting a feed of information through
Fake news,
well,
yeah, fake news or information through a predefined set of classes. But I will argue that it is not AIML's fault. It is our fault how we are using AIML, right?
sure.
It is just like whether nuclear technology is evil, or when we make atom bombs and use it is evil, right? So I think AIML is just a tool. It is just mathematics and physics, and we are using it in the wrong way, right? We are just using it to serve us.
Right. But I mean, I think you're touching on a point. I mean, using it in the wrong way is kind of an interesting point of view because um, the wrong way in what context? Because I think the way that AI and ML is being used is serving the purposes of the people that are deploying it.
Right.
Because Facebook and Google and Twitter and YouTube, all of these platforms, they have one goal, and that is to keep you on their platform, which means feeding you continuous information that you'll be interested in, likely to be engaged with,
Right.
as opposed to feeding you information that maybe you disagree with or is uncomfortable or challenges your point of view. And so that means that people who have expressed an interest in baseball, they're going to see all this information about baseball, but they'll never see something about, traffic control issues or airplanes. And people who are interested in gardening, they'll see all the stuff about gardening, but they won't ever see anything that's talking about, maybe uh, geopolitical stuff. And the same thing with space people. I'm sure that my Facebook feed and your Facebook feed might look very, very similar, but are very dissimilar from those other 180 some odd people I've talked to.
Absolutely. And that is why we should use AI/ML when it is required for our jobs, for a drug, for a drug discovery, or for seeing what is the optimal way we can send payload from here to the moon, right? But
Mm-hmm.
when it comes to my thing, I don't have Facebook, and I don't go by a recommendation. So what I do, I still like to walk to a Barnes and Noble, and of course at first I go to the science section, but then I make sure that I go through all the sections to see what catches my eye, what interests me. And it is not possible for me to buy hundreds of dollars worth of book at the same time, but I make notes, I take photographs. Some I buy from the bookstore. Some I buy from the Amazon. Some I buy from Kindle. But I try to read wide variety of books. So as you can understand that I am not religious, but I also read books, by religious people. I also read books by people who are very strong atheists, like Richard Dawkins, because unless you read all the things, you cannot make your own judgment. Because you and I, we can talk all day and we can say how great it is to go to the moon. But it will also make sense if we talk to some people who are against the space exploration for whatever reason. And let us see why they are thinking like that. Because I know somebody who says that why we are spending billions of dollars for this when we need to help people in our inner cities, when we need to help people here, right now. And the argument I said that, yeah, you are right about that, but you have to see the bigger scale, the bigger picture, that every species go extinct. You cannot fight the extinction laws of the earth. And we are a very, very young species, but I don't see we are existing for another 65 million years if you see all the extinction cycles. So how we will make sure, how we will build, so he's a very religious person. So I said, you think of this, that how you can build your ark in the space. So, so if you are not, so what I try to say, and I like Stephen Gold, he was a geneticist, and of course he was an atheist, but he was not a strong atheist as Richard Dawkins, and he has something called NOMA, NOMA, non-overlapping magisteria. You know, that means he's saying let science be science and religion be a religion. Don't overlap them, because you can argue for ages without any, without any conclusion. And let them be separate and see how you can use each other's strength. How you can use each other's strength to make humanity more successful. So I said to him that, hey, you believe in art, let you build arc in the space, right? So
Oh,
yeah.
exactly. And I've talked to a lot of people who've said the same thing about why don't we solve this problem or that problem, be it poverty, hunger, global climate change, kind of like just all those issues. And I think what's helpful is to kind of talk to them and say, okay,
Yeah.
you have $23 billion. How are we going to spend it to solve that problem? And just
Right.
kind of get through it. And the other standpoint of it is that money doesn't actually do anything. Ultimately, it's just a tool for deploying people and resources and organizing them.
Right.
And so uh, you know, uh, and it's if you have money, you're not necessarily going to be able to organize those resources effectively. And just because you don't have money doesn't mean you necessarily won't be able to get those resources and what have you. They don't necessarily have to be as tied together as maybe they are in our minds. But I mean, the problem in what I like to say is, the challenges of us exploring this solar system and the universe are so great that we need every brain, regardless of what container it's in.
Exactly. Yep,
So
absolutely. That is a very good thing. I will remember that you need every brain,
yes,
irrespective of the container. Yep.
then or what passport's been assigned to it or anything.
Right.
So um,
Okay. Mhm.
the other thing that people talk about in terms of why we shouldn't go to space, I had it's not a significant number of people, but it's significant enough to make an impression. Is this idea that we've messed up the Earth? Why would we mess up the moon, our space too? That humanity is actually a negative force on the universe, and that we should be contained to the Earth, and the universe should be protected from us.
Interesting thing, and I will say that we are a very young species, so we are learning from our mistake, right? You know that when you have a young child, probably he cannot go and survive outside on his own or on her own. So what do? You lock her up for entire of her lifetime? No. You teach her from your own experience how to survive in this world, right? So we have all the experiences from the past where we know how we have messed up the earth. So I will say it is giving us a clean slate to not to repeat the same mistakes, but we will have other mistakes, of course, right? Then if we mess up moon, we will try on Mars. If we mess up on Mars, we will try on Venus. So I think we have, we have you know, years ago. Yeah, but of course, being a scientists, we always want to, try, right? Everything is a research and everything is an experiment. So you cannot run away from experiment thinking that experiment will.
But I think the problem is kind of having a common definition of what a mistake is. I mean, um, some people consider the Europeans coming over to North America to be a mistake, and we should have just left North America alone. But obviously, that was a great enabler for the world that you and I live in, and I have trouble believing that my existence is a mistake. um, so.
Absolutely. Like I will give you another example that as you said that, as Niels Bohr said, that nobody can predict the future, right? So instead of going into what if, we have to learn from our earlier experiences and mistakes. Like one of the example I'll give, that there is a huge debate in India that if we were not under the British rule, what would have happened? We don't know what would have happened, but we know that we are here, that I can talk to Nathan in English. One of the reason is for us because the British were in India, right? So let us look at the positive side, and we should not repeat the negative side of colonialism. Like if we find now there is an intelligent life in Venus, we should not go and do what our colonial ancestors did, So we should not repeat that mistake, but that does not mean that we should not go and explore, We should not go and explore. So that is the problem, that we always want very black and white thing, yes and no, because it is very easy for us to process, either you open the door and go outside, or you don't open the door. We cannot handle as a species the gray area. Maybe you don't open the door, but you open your windows to see what is outside. Then you decide whether you will open the door and go or not, So that means what we need is that we need more true education, not another MS degree, PhD, and all these things. More education means reading. You read more. If you are watching 5 Netflix, Netflix thing, don't watch 5, watch 4. And for that one, you just read some book and see, You will be amazed how many people still don't know where India is. And they are all successful people, They are all very successful in their respective workplace. But if we say, okay, where is India, we don't know. Or if you say that how many planets are in the, in our solar system, not that they haven't read it in the school, but they haven't kept touch with that. But if you read and read and read, or even listen audiobooks, if you don't like to read, I think it will help. But if you just watch news, whether it is from Fox or CBS, you will just hear one side of the things, right? That is what is happening. I'm saying most of my friends are either here or here, They are not able to think on their own and try to see what works.
Oh, exactly. I mean, there's a lot of danger to thinking on your own, right? Because those groups sort of are are very challenge and kind of attack anything that deviates from what's considered to be the norm of that group, which means you have to have a really and most ideas start out as very fragile things.
Right.
So it's hard to really think on your own and have an idea and share that and have it develop and have it grow into something if it immediately gets attacked. Um, and this is true with anything, be it an
And,
IT or
and
public
yes,
policy
right.
or what have you.
You have to protect it, but when you are protecting, you still have to let air and sunlight come in, because otherwise you end up with an ossified, rigorous, not working idea. But initially you have to protect it from all the distraction and all these things, right? Because I think you and I, we believe that we should be going to the moon or to the outer space. So initially, if we start a group, we need like-minded people, because if it is you and I and we have 500 other people who are anti to that idea, we will not have that group. But when we grow to a critical mass, then we have to let some critics in, so that we can also see the other side. We can also see what mistakes we are making or how we are being perceived by others, so that we can change that perception. But most of the time it is not that, most of the time it is 100% in and 100% out, you know.
Even something as simple as coming up with a common vocabulary or way, kind of framework in which to evaluate ideas and points of view. And having those people in there helps to create something that would be more universally available or
Yeah,
applicable.
you are right. One of the things that I'm working with a NIST on AI ethics and safety. And first thing so at that time we can still travel and have on-site meeting at NIST. And we said that we need a basic ontology. We need a basic ontology. What do we mean by AI ethics? And what we will be using as the terms, so that when I am using a term AI black box, what does that mean? When I am saying AI explainability, we all know what are the attributes of that explainability. It is not up for, up for a random definition. So you are absolutely right that we have to have a common vocabulary. What does space exploration means, right? Or what does this moon expedition means, and how it will help.
Indeed.
Yeah.
And so the 2024 moon landing, what do you think it would take to actually make that happen?
So I think that it will need both citizen participation and, of course, the help from NASA, the government and all. But I think if the citizens, if we are very excited like we were in, during our only moon landing, right? 69, that at that time we had a common adversary, right? Soviet Union. So everybody was pumped up. So I think we have to create some adversary like that. It can be anybody, but I will pick the obvious one, that, China will land and they will occupy moon, so that we have to grab the people's attention. We have to grab their support, and that will enable the senators and the government to be more excited, right? Because not necessarily that every politician will be very excited because they have to solve some immediate problem. But if they are hearing from their, from the people that yes, we have to go to the moon, we have to go to the moon. So we have to create that, and I think you are doing your part by having these one-to-one, meetings, just to interest everybody. But I think we need to create some stories. We have to create some exciting, engaging things that ultimately we have to say what's in it for everybody. That's why everybody should be, wanting that we should be in the moon as soon as we can. So
I think we definitely need to create some stories. Regarding the geopolitical thing, I keep thinking that there's a real danger in our current environment about a contest with China. People are like, you don't need, like, you have positive competition, you have negative competition, right? So you have two people running a race. If all your goal is to get over the finish line before the other person, then that means you could trip the other person up or send the other person in the wrong direction or throw sand in the other person's eyes. Then you have positive competition where you're like, you know, I'm going to win the race by running faster, and you're going to run faster. And at the end of it, we're going to have faster running people, and that'd be good. And you kind of look at like the geopolitical thing, and you're like, sabotage and kind of um, isolating and kind of inflicting some things to make it harder for the other person, uh, is definitely a way. I mean, because people are like, we don't have to beat China to the moon. We could just beat up China here on Earth, and that's easier and
no,
achieves our goal.
it is not about that. It is just showing that we are better.
Right.
It is not showing that how we can mess up the other guys from running, as you said. It is just showing what science is better. It is showing that we have better ability, better capability. It is. Yeah. Hey, I have to drop off in
Oh,
1 minute. So
oh, no worry. Well, thank you so much, Sanjay. I really appreciate your time,
yeah. Thank you.
and I'll see you later.